Do you really need this? Hi, I'm Ivan. This is THOR Media, and today we're going to explore, do you really need these things? As a detailing entrepreneur, there's a few things you need, but there's a lot of things you really don't need. One of them, the extractor. Now you're going to say, all the cars I do are disgusting, they're dirty. Raise your prices. Once you raise your prices, you're going to get cars that are much cleaner, and you won't need an extractor anymore. And even if you do have to do one of those vehicles, there's a lot you can accomplish without having an extractor. When you're starting out as a detailer, that's a big investment. There are adapters, there are things you can put on a shop vac, in your garden hose, etc., etc. A real extractor is a real extractor, but you really don't need one. In worst case scenario, if you're only doing 1, 2, maybe 5 cars like that a year, rent one when you need one. It's not that difficult to do. And you're not keeping a piece of equipment that you're not using on a regular basis. And if you are using an extractor on a regular basis, you might want to identify why that is. Not every car needs to be shampooed. You don't need to introduce moisture into every car. It's really not necessary. Another thing that you really don't need, a steamer. Now, steamer 15 years ago was extremely popular. Everyone had to have one. You notice how they've gone out of vogue. There's a reason for that. They're very inefficient. Now, they do work, but they slow you down. They make interior detailing arduous and long and slow and steamy. If you're like Jamie in the swamp, well, not the best idea to have added steam when your environment is giving you more than enough. Makeup brushes. Keep them for makeup. You don't need them in detailing. Like most of you, you've seen all the Instagram and TikTok posts where they take a fancy little brush with an interior cleaner and suds it all up on the dash and the door panel. That looks really cool on social media. That really slows you down in real life. There are a lot better ways to clean your interior. Sure, that could be fun, and if you're a hobbyist at home, go for it. But if you're trying to make a living at this, those little brushes, maybe have one, just in case. But you really, really don't need them. You really don't need 3 GPM at 2000 PSI. As a detailer, a garden hose suffices. That's really all you need. Now, if you're an aficionado of the foam cannon, of course you're going to need a pressure washer. If you're not an aficionado of the foam cannon, you don't need a pressure washer. Now, pressure washers do have their advantages. Less water consumption, and they're just very efficient for rinsing. You don't need to have the highest price, puts out the most gallons per minute pressure washer. In our shops, we had, I think it was a 6 horsepower, 8 gallon per minute pressure washer. We had that sucker dialed down to 1000 PSI and 1 gallon per minute. And we could go lower than that sometimes. That's all you really need. You don't need a lot of pressure. You don't need a lot of gallons per minute. If you follow guys like Josh or Cars from Kyiv, of course, they're having fun with their pressure washers. They're trying to get the most GPM and the most pressure they can. But even they will tell you that the little Ryobi one or whatever will do the job. And speaking of Josh, have you tried out the Quiver foam cannon? Now, if you're a foam cannon aficionado, if you love foam, you need to check out the Quiver foam cannon available at the House of Rags. Another thing you really don't need is black paint on your walls. Do you want to slow down your detailing? Do you want to make paint correction very hard on you, your body, and your eyes? Then get black walls. If you like to be efficient at paint correction, and you like to see what you're doing, and you don't want to be moving lights around all the time, paint your walls white, paint your floors white, paint your ceiling white. The lighter color your interior of your shop can be, the better it is for you. Now, granted, those black walls look really cool until you paint a wall black and realize that you just created a black hole, and no matter how much light you put on the ceiling, it's still going to be dark in there. For those of you that are foaming aficionados, you don't need 18 different types of soap. Heck, you don't need 3. You only need 1. A lot of people are really caught up these days in the high pH, low pH, and neutral pH type of soaps. You don't need that. It's a contact wash doing the job, getting rid of the traffic film. If you try those high pH, low pH, combination pH things, yes, they work to a point. But you still need to do a contact wash if you actually want to clean the car. So you don't need all of those. They're taking your time away from you. If you're a hobbyist and you have fun with that, enjoy. If you're a professional, you don't need to do that. We survived many, many decades without that, and we are able to clean cars and get really shiny cars. And you don't need that sort of thing. You don't need 5 different polishers to polish a car. I polish a car with one. I use a 6-inch pad. 6-inch pad gets you just about everywhere you need to go. And honestly, if you can't get in there with a 6-inch pad, there's a good chance no one's gotten in there to scratch that area either. There are other things when it comes to polishing that you don't need, and that is you don't need perfection. No detailer has ever removed a scratch from paint. Instead, you're removing the clear coat or the paint from around the scratch down to the level of the scratch. And the scratch always wins because you've destroyed the paint around that area of the scratch. It might look better to you, it might look better to the customer, but in the end, you've removed precious clear coat that can't be replaced. Now, there are things on the market that claim they replace and they're thicker than this and thicker than that. They're not going to replace the factory clear coat. Even repainting a car is never as good as the factory clear coat. So you don't need to remove everything. Agree with your customer. What do they need? What do they see, more importantly? Because what we see as detailers is very different than what the customer sees with their vehicle. If they're happy with their vehicle, then you just need to gloss it up. Save your time, save your energy, make the customer happy. You're not trying to make other detailers online happy. They're not going to pay your bills, they're not going to come see you, and they're not the ones that are going to be referring other customers back to you. You don't need the latest and greatest chemicals all the time. Find a system that works for you. Enjoy that system, learn that system, and get very in depth with that system. Once you find a system that works for you, it's going to work for you all the time. There's no need to be always researching the latest and greatest chemicals. Now, if you're an influencer and that is what you do, have fun with it. If you're a hobbyist, by all means, if you can afford it, go for it. If you're a professional detailer, don't start chasing the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. It doesn't exist. If your chemicals work for you, keep using them. Now, some things come along, some things change, some things get better. But make sure it's really better. And before you go out and buy a gallon of something, try a 16-ounce or a 32-ounce bottle. Make sure it is exactly what everyone is saying. Because sometimes they're saying a lot of stuff and they're just repeating the same things over and over again. Remember, the people making videos, like a lot of the great contributors here on the House of Rags, well, when they're doing product reviews, they're looking at it normally from a hobbyist perspective. This is fun to use. They're not saying that every time they're using something that you need to go out and buy it. What they're saying is, this is how I enjoyed this product, and you might enjoy it this way as well. But you don't need to change every week. Some of you like to collect detailing products. That's great. Do that. But if you're a professional and you have employees, you need to limit the number of products you have, the number of choices your employees need to make. Another thing you don't need is a chemistry degree. Well, actually, it would be good if you had one, but most of us don't have a chemistry degree, which means don't play armchair chemist. The manufacturers of all the detailing products have gone out of their way to design systems and make it easy for you to detail a car. And you're trying to make things better. You're trying to, well, what if I put 1 drop of this, 5 drops of that, and 6 drops of this, and a half drop of this, and then mix it all together, and then put it in the oven? No, you're not baking a cake. You're detailing a car. Stick to what everyone knows. Stick to what the manufacturers have designed for their systems, and you will do a much better job. You might think you're doing a little better job. In reality, most of the time, you're not. You don't need hexagonal lights on the ceiling. You need lots of lights on the ceiling. You don't need the hex ones. They're cute, they're fun, but you really don't need them. Another shop accessory that a lot of people really think they're going to like until they get it is the Swiss Tracks race deck type floors. Now, they're fine, they work, but they require maintenance. They require you to lift up the floor once in a while. They require you to clean underneath them. And if you don't have a drain in your shop, they get really messy really quick. Now, the other thing that is a little inconvenient with them, if you're like me and of a certain age, kneeling down on those floors can be painful. It's not a nice flat floor. Those little ridges and bumps, they're hard on the knees. So that's another thing to consider. Speaking of hard on the knees, you don't need to be bending over. You don't need to adopt the pose of polishing and following the polisher. And no, you don't need to do that. What you need to do, record yourself detailing. and you'll see just how bad or how good your posture is. Hopefully it's good, but don't adopt postures that are going to hurt you in the future. Another thing you don't need to be climbing up on vehicles. This is one product I'm going to tell you to get, is one of those little stools or platforms, whatever. Stop climbing on vehicles. It's not good for the vehicle. It really, especially if you're a professional detailer, looks really bad in the customer's eyes. If you're a mobile detailer, even worse. When they see someone climbing on their car, they may not be happy about it. And if you fall off the car, you definitely will not be happy about it. Have you ever been to the Cheesecake Factory? Did you know exactly what you wanted coming in? And is that what you ate? Probably not, because the menu is so confusing, so big, they have so many choices, you just give up. And that's what happens with your customers when your menu is way too big. You don't need everything under the sun on your menu. What you need to do is reduce the menu items, be as simple as possible and as concise as possible. Now, you can add options, but you don't have to confuse the customer on your website with 18,000 different choices. No, have 2 or 3 packages. That's all you need to do. You don't need to grind it out. You don't need to work 70 hours a week. And if you do to make ends meet, you need to raise your prices. You need to find better customers. But you don't need to work 70 hours a week. And if you are at that point, not because you need the money, but because you have so much customers, why aren't you hiring an employee? Get an employee. They're easy to get. They're easy to find. They're available just about anywhere. And you have your choice. You can get a tall one, a short one, a big one, a fat one, a small one. It doesn't matter. You can find an employee and you can train an employee. The last thing you definitely do not need as a detailer is an ego. Ego has ruined so many detailers' lives and so many detailing businesses over the years, it's not even funny. As a detailer, we're there to serve the customer. We're there to make the customer happy. We're there to satisfy the customer and their needs, not the other detailers on the internet saying, "Oh, you only did 3 stages of polishing, you're a hack." No, you satisfied your customer, the customer paid you, hopefully they left you a Google review. If that's the case, you're the one that's winning. In the end, the detailing entrepreneur will always win over the better detailer. And what is the better detailer? The one that goes so far and beyond on paint that there's no paint left on the car? That no one else can polish it again? Think about that one. You don't need an ego to be a detailer. Instead, you need to satisfy your customers. You need to make a living. You need to charge enough to be able to pay your employees, pay your rent, take the kids out for supper, have fun, have a vacation, and have a retirement plan. That's what you need. And the final thing that everyone needs when detailing, you need to have fun. You need to enjoy it. If you're not enjoying detailing, there's no harm in saying, "I give up," or "I don't want to do this anymore." Not everyone is made out to be a detailer. Sure, I've been doing it for 45 years. But there are some people after 45 days, they quit, and that's fine. There's nothing saying you have to be a detailer, and that doesn't mean you're not successful in life if you decide to change careers. Not saying you need to change careers, not saying you should change careers. Detailing is fun. Detailing is enjoyable. It's allowed me to put food on the table for 45 years and have a roof over my head, and in my case, wheels under my foundation. But that being said, detailing can be fun, it's enjoyable, and it's a good thing to do. One last little thing though. This you really do need. You need to subscribe to the House of Rags. When you subscribe to the House of Rags, not only are you supporting the House of Rags, you're supporting a whole bunch of content creators that are there for your education, for your entertainment, and the community effort of making detailing better, more fun, and more enjoyable for everyone. We'll see you on the next Deep Dive.